This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
The inauguration of a new American president. But protesters make their presence felt on the day Donald Trump takes over. And the Hong Kong government wants to come up with MPF reform proposal in the next several months.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the inauguration of Donald Trump, who is now the 45th President of the United States. In his inaugural address, he fiercely vowed to uphold America First policy and protect it from other countries.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
In his first address to the nation, President Trump said his #1 goal is to give power to the people.
We are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
He vowed to inspire a new national pride by protecting America.
We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries, making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs.
Then he painted an ominous portrait of the nation and warned the world he won't allow America to be pushed around.
Mothers and children trapped in poverty, rusted out factories, scattered like tombstones across the landscape, and the crime, and the gangs, and the drugs. For many decades, we've enriched foreign industry at the expense of American industry, subsidize the armies of other countries while allowing for the very sad depletion of our military. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now.
And he's confident of his plans to secure peace for America.
We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth.
Then he closed with a message calling for unity.
We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable. Together, we will make America strong again. And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you.
Donald Trump quickly assumed the mantle of president, signing an executive order to weaken Obamacare. The order appears aimed at undoing the requirement that individuals must carry medical insurance or face fines. More on that from Alan Booknia.
Flanked by Vice President Mike Pence and White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, Trump first signed the commissions of incoming Defense Secretary James Mattis and Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly. He then signed an order that directs federal agencies to grant waivers, exemptions, and delays in provisions of the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare. It's just the opening salvo at the law Trump has vowed to repeal. But it may not have much impact this year because the rules have already been incorporated in contracts signed by insurance companies.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Then, along with First Lady Melania, who was outside the Capitol building, for the traditional review of the troops at the start of the inauguration parade. The couple watched the parade from a viewing stand near the White House. The route was lined with crowds of supporters, and a separate crowd of anti-Trump protesters lined up on another side of the route behind police lines. Following the parade, the Trumps did a walkabout down Pennsylvania Avenue with their son, Barron. The busy day was capped off by 3 separate balls.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our honor to present to you the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump.
Well, we did it. We did. We began this journey, and they said we and me, we didn't have a chance, but we knew we were going to win, and we won.
My friend, I'll say it clear.
Then it was the first dance for the new President and First Lady to a rendition of My Way. Alan Bookniat, TVB News.
Protests against Donald Trump's presidency unfolded across the United States, around the world, most of them peaceful. But in the U.S. Capitol, it was a different story. James Aiken with more.
While formality and pageantry were on display on Capitol Hill, it was rage and violence just a few blocks away. Protesters set fires and hurled bricks in a day-long assault. At points, police in riot gear used pepper spray and stun grenades to prevent the chaos from spilling into Trump's formal procession and evening balls. Further away from the National Mall, police chased protesters who smashed business windows as they denounced Trump and capitalism. The clashes led to more than 200 arrests. Several police officers suffered minor injuries.
We respect the rights of people to gather and to protest peacefully in Washington, D.C., but we will not tolerate violence and vandalism and the destruction of our neighborhoods.
In California, a state that overwhelmingly voted against Trump, thousands took to the streets in mostly peaceful protests in cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles.
One day when my kids ask me what I was doing, I'm going to tell them I was out here. I want to be proud of my answer.
Far away in Pakistan, there was mixed reaction to the new president.
I really don't like Donald Trump. I like, to be very honest, it's not my country, but if you ask me as a neutral person, I don't think he makes sense.
Meanwhile, in Manila, worries about how the Philippines' relationship with the U.S. might change under the new president sparked modest protests.
To voice our opposition, to stand with the people who are inclined to build bridges, not walls, just like the wall that Trump wants to build on America.
Back in Washington, there's much more to come. Security officials expect tens of thousands to attend a massive women's march planned for later today. James Aiken, TVB News.
Chief Secretary for Administration Matthew Chung says the MPF offsetting mechanism has to go. The goal is to submit a final proposal to the Executive Council before the current term government ends. Elmi Leung reports.
The MPF offsetting mechanism is much dreaded by workers. It allows employers to draw money from employees' MPF contributions and use it to offset severance and long service payments. As laid out in Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's policy address this week, the practice will be abolished progressively. The government has proposed a subsidy to help the business sector in a 10-year transitional period. Chief Secretary for Administration Matthew Chung told TVB News business chambers and SMEs he met with recently have reservations.
Our proposal on the table purely it's a basis for discussion. If there is any better proposal coming up which is viable, affordable, and of course to all parties concerned, I keep an open mind. And in the final analysis, we need to do away with offsetting, because this will really affect the long-term preservation of the contribution from employers in the long run.
Zhang says the goal is to work out a final proposal and put it before the Executive Council before the current administration ends its term in June. The former Labour and Welfare chief also hit back at critics of the enhanced old age living allowance scheme, which will offer about $3,400 a month to those in greater need.
We're not just looking at one single pillar called allowance. Cash allowance is not the only answer. Now, we also, in fact, taken a very bold decision, for example, of extending the age further down to 65 for all people enjoying medical vouchers, $2,000 per year.
He said an area that requires further work, though, is improving elderly home and community care services for senior citizens. Elmi Long, TVB News.
Chief Executive Lan Cheng-ying has hit out at the idea that Hong Kong needs a break from a proactive government under his watch. Adam Shu has more on that and the latest in the upcoming CE election.
When announcing his bid for the city's top job on Thursday, John Tsang claimed Hong Kong needs a respite from the political turmoil in the past few years. Some believe that represents the former financial secretary's vision of a different government from that of his former boss, often criticized as aggressive and divisive. On a radio program today, the CE questioned what it would be like if Hong Kong rests on its laurels while its rivals don't. Lan Cheng-ying stressed that the SAR must actively support and benefit from the mainland's development. He also denied he was to blame for society's polarization. And Leung gave a more detailed account on why he did not seek re-election. The CE said while his daughter was in hospital earlier, he spent an hour with her every night for 2 months, and he decided not to run again while juggling between his loved ones and his work. To the race to find Leung's successor, Pan-Democratic Election Committee members today discussed their plan as to who to nominate.
We have to actively and strategically use our nomination powers in order to ensure a competitive election and also an election whereby not anyone can control the outcome.
Kwok said 3 CE hopefuls, Regina Ip, John Tsang and Wu Kwok-hing, have approached the camp, which holds more than a quarter of election committee votes. Kwok added, Pan-Democrats haven't ruled out fielding their own candidate, but would only make a decision towards the end of the nomination period, which runs from February 14th to March the 1st. Adam Xu, TVB News.
A group of non-establishment politicians today issued a statement calling on Chief Executive Lan Cheng-ying to drop the judicial review against 4 lawmakers over oath-taking. The alleged oaths taken by Lau Siu Lai, Nathan Law, Lung Kwa Kung, and Edward Yu are being challenged in court. Those who signed the statement have also urged CE hopefuls to state their positions on the issue.
We are defending the most important democratic institution in Hong Kong. I think the members take it very seriously in the consideration of who to nominate.
This has now been raised for the election committee members to put forward to the chief executive candidates as an issue that they need to answer on.
And when we come back, landslide buries parts of a hotel in Hubei province.
Welcome back. A landslide hit a hotel in Hubei province on the mainland last night. At least 2 people are dead and 10 others are missing. Tragedy struck the Mirage Hotel in Nanjiang County. Authorities say 15 people were trapped when 3,000 cubic meters of debris slid down a slope behind the hotel. Rescuers pulled 5 people from the debris. 2 of them died in hospital. The rescue operation was disrupted this morning when emergency crews were told to leave the site because of signs of another landslide nearby. The search for survivors continues in Italy, where a hotel was buried in an avalanche of snow. 4 people were pulled alive from the wreckage overnight, bringing the number of survivors to 9. After hours of digging, the 2 men and 2 women were extracted from the shattered ruins of Hotel Rigopiano. The bodies of 3 others were also recovered, raising the death toll to at least 5. About 15 people still remain unaccounted for.
Staying in Italy, at least 16 people were killed and about 25 injured after a bus carrying Hungarian students burst into flames on a highway. Authorities say the bus slammed into a highway barrier near Verona overnight and caught fire. It was carrying mostly teenage students, teachers, and parents. They were heading home from a trip to France. No word yet on what caused that fatal crash.
Drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has appeared in a U.S. court after his extradition from Mexico, and he pleaded not guilty to charges that he ran the world's largest drug trafficking organization during a decades-long criminal career. The 59-year-old, who was one of the world's most wanted drug lords, was accompanied by 2 court-appointed lawyers. Guzman was captured a year ago after he had fled a high-security penitentiary in central Mexico through a mile-long tunnel, his second dramatic prison escape. The indictment against Guzman, with 17 criminal counts, carries a mandatory minimum sentence of life in prison. U.S. prosecutors have more than 40 witnesses ready to testify.
Gambia's defeated leader insists he will cede power. The announcement from Yahya Jammeh came hours after last-ditch talks with regional leaders. It included a threat that a regional military force would forcibly remove him. He has ruled the tiny West African nation for 22 years. Jammeh had refused to accept his election defeat last month to President Adama Barrow, sparking a political crisis. In a televised address, Jammeh promised that all issues the country currently faces will be resolved peacefully. He did not give details, however. Human rights activists insist Jammeh be held accountable for alleged human rights abuses and that he not be able to keep illegally amassed funds.
I am confident that
Turkish lawmakers approved a reform package aimed at giving more powers to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. But the people of Turkey will still have the final say. The final tally was 339 for and 142 against the bill. In addition to changing the system of government, the bill will allow the president to keep ties with his party and restructure the nation's highest judicial body. The vote concluded 2 weeks of heated debates that led to lawmakers throwing punches. It now heads to a referendum likely to be held in April.
And back locally, some in the construction industry have stepped up criticism of delays by lawmakers in approving project funding. Rachel Lung has more.
The Legislative Council has been blamed once again for failing to approve funding requests in a timely fashion. The city's leader has accused lawmakers of blocking infrastructure projects.梁振英said work at the Public Works Subcommittee has been paralyzed for months. The subcommittee has not approved any funding requests since June last year. One example, a public housing project along Chonga Road and Area 9 in Taipo, which aims to provide 7,000 flats. The subcommittee formally began discussing it last month, but little headway was made after 3 meetings. In the 2013-2014 fiscal year, LegCo approved $37 billion in funding for government engineering projects. That's down sharply from $151 billion the year before. In the last fiscal year, $88 billion was approved. Some say the delays have taken a toll on the livelihoods of construction workers. Those in the trade say they need around $70 billion worth of public works projects to maintain their cash flow. And the sector's biggest concern, rising unemployment.
In the past few years, there has been filibustering, and then the funding approval from the Financial Committee since 2013 has been very low. The impact is basically having a stop-and-go impact on contracts, and to a certain extent, a lot of the works are coming to a completion this year, but then we will expect the reductions in work volume is going to impact on the future of the construction industry.
Chow Lun-Kyu, chairman of the Hong Kong Construction Industry Employees General Union, has urged lawmakers to stop filibustering, saying the prospects of their workers are at stake. Rachel Ling, TVB News.
20 people, most of them children, were injured in a traffic accident in Yuen Long today. The crash happened on Yuen Long Highway at around 3:30 p.m. It involved 2 private cars and a van with 15 children on board. The injuries were mainly minor and they were treated at Pak Oi Hospital.